Well, you go through all these simple calculations, which is how much do I have to do? How long does it take? How many hours do I have to dedicate to it? It seems perfect. Schedules are very accurate. And you can do a lot of calculations on schedules, and they're very simple to calculate too. So they're very accurate. They're very simple. The problem is they're very fragile. Because all you need is the kid who can't find a shoe, right? And you're late for work. In a factory, all you need is for the customer to change his or her mind, for a machine to speed up or slow down, for something to get scrapped, and the schedule you had is no longer valid because all the things you put into the calculation no longer are true. I worked in a factory. We had a schedule every morning at 6:30. So at 6:30, when the schedule came out, we all knew exactly what to do: get coffee. And the reason we got coffee at 6:30 is because we knew at 6:40 they'd update the schedule with a hot list. And that's when we added the cream. And then, and the reason we did that is because we knew at 6:50 we got the second update, which is where we got the sugar. And around 7 o'clock, we started to walk towards the factory floor. We had time for a second cup of coffee because that's when the superintendent came out and started yelling at us what we really needed to do. The reason is at 6:30, they had made a schedule based on what was true the night before, or thought to be true. By 6:30, they run the schedule, give it to us, things have changed. Then when things have changed, people say, well, I can't make this because I don't have the parts, this is not what's needed. They change it again. So finally, we start yelling at each other. So people go over to Japan and discover it's a much quieter environment. And this is not just the Japanese are quiet people. It's that people have taken processes, laid out, like in the first row, rather than job shops, started organizing things sequentially. This piece of work leads to this one, this one, this one. Then they add these pull systems. Who's heard of pull just in time? All right, here's the basic idea of a pull system, which is if I need something, I ask Gotti for it. And if I ask Gotti for it, he's obligated to give it back to me. And if Gotti needs something to give me something, he asks Boaz. All right? And that's how it works. It's a very simple system. Now, the thing about any pull system, now, of course, you have to adjust if there's cycle times, if there's scrap, if there's lead times, whatever. But the thing about a pull system is if I ask Gotti more frequently for things, he naturally has to speed up. If he starts working faster, Boaz has to work faster, and it keeps going. If I slow down because I actually need less than I thought, Gotti's work slows down, and so does Boaz's work. It becomes self-regulating. Now, who works with a self-regulating system? Just show of hands. Well, all of you do. All of you do. Who was late for the meeting this morning? If you were, you ran in from the parking lot, you got a bad parking spot, you were further out, so you ran into the building, you got here, you're breathing a little faster, your heart rate is going up, maybe you're perspiring a little bit more because it's warm outside. Then when you sat, did anyone have to think that through? Anyone say, oh my gosh, I have to run, heart, speed up? Anyone say, lungs, start breathing? No, it just happened naturally. When you sat down, it's air conditioned in here, you got nice comfortable seats, everything slowed down. Not a single person, I guarantee, thought, all right, heart, slow down. Go, no, the 120 beats per minute is too high. Go down to about an 80, then 70, then 60. You didn't do that, it just happened naturally. What people discover is that in these factories with these pull systems, they have this self-regulation going on, that if things have to speed up, they all speed up together. If they have to slow down, they all slow down together. Again, remember, the goal is half in, twice out. And if you have a system where people aren't arguing over the forks, the knives, the spoons, the oven, the refrigerator, the sink, and then the pieces start to self-regulate, you get much closer to half in, twice out. Now, there was a third set of discovery. When people ask the question, what is Toyota doing that their factories run so well? When you work in a kitchen by yourself, you can whisk the eggs with your right hand, you can whisk it with your left hand, you can use a blender, you can use the hand-powered whisk. You can chop different ways. You can chop the onions first and then the peppers then the onions. You can saute, and anything you want, you can improvise. And the reason you can improvise is how you do your work has no impact on anybody else. No impact on anybody else. That's how job shops were run. You gave the individual craftsperson latitude to do whatever he wanted, whatever she wanted. It could be Gotti and I do the same work, but we do it differently. Gotti does his work one way and then does it a different way, and no one cares. Because Gotti is working here, he's isolated from Boaz, he's isolated from me, isolated from Osnat. Everyone's isolated. But when you start creating systems where people's role is much more clear in terms of what they do and how it fits into a system, and then we start synchronizing things, Gotti no longer can improvise. And in fact, not only can he improvise, which sounds like a control thing, his improvisation, his making it up as he goes along, is very bad not only for the rest of us, it's very bad for him. Because all of a sudden, he can't keep up with the rest of us. When people go to Japan, they discover, rather than improvisation, they got fancy engineering terms, standard work. So it sounds like a puppet with strings. But think of it as choreography. When the ballet comes to town and puts on a performance, we don't say, oh, those poor ballerinas, they can't improvise. Isn't that shame? They can't, look at me, I'm a tree. Right? They follow a choreography. When we watch a basketball team, we don't say, oh, that poor forward, he can't improvise. He follows a play. Whether it be football as the rest of the world knows it, or American football, or baseball, or basketball, whatever it happens to be, people on teams have plays. And the reason they have plays and roles and choreography is because it makes the individual more effective and it makes the team more effective. People go over to Japan, and they discover not only are the roles much more clear through the creation of these continuous flow, and there's much higher degree of synchronization because of this pull, but people actually have some choreography to the work they do. Not only don't they improvise, they don't have to improvise each time. Now, when American companies start copying this combination of flow, pull, and standard work, they start closing the gap on half in, twice out. Get much more productive, much higher quality, but there's a problem. You know what the problem is? They don't catch Toyota. They don't catch Toyota. See, the thing is, 1985, everyone's looking at Toyota and saying, look at the quality, which is why they're stealing market share. Look at the productivity, that's why they're stealing market share. What are they doing? They're doing flow, pull, and standard work. Let's do flow, pull, and standard work. We should be able to close the gap on Toyota. But we know they didn't. From 1985 through 1995-2000, Toyota not only increased the number of models, they went from cars to trucks, to minivans, to SUVs. They went from the Toyota brand to Toyota plus Lexus plus Scion. They went from Toyota as an exporter from Toyota City to Toyota as large. Toyota, you know what the, it's funny, anyone hear the term the big three? What's the big three? What's the big three?
Ford, GM, and Chrysler.
Yes, well, that's actually a lie. All right. It used to be the big three meant the three.
Big four, actually.
Well, yes and no. It used to be the big three were GM, Ford, and Chrysler, meaning the three biggest North American automakers. Well, now the big three are GM, Toyota, Ford, someone else, and Chrysler. Chrysler is maybe about fifth. And the point of the example is Toyota not only increased models under the Toyota brand, increased brands with Lexus and Scion, increased its global presence from an exporter from Japan to locally self-sufficient in North America, increasingly self-sufficient in Europe, and then introduced technological leadership with the hybrid drive and the Prius. So people thought, oh, if we can only get the productivity, we'll catch Toyota, and Toyota just ran away. Now let me just do a time check with Boaz. Good time, because there's a second part to the story, but coffee is first. So.